tipping on four, tipping on four, rapping, four, rapping, four, tipping on four, tipping on four, rapping, four, rapping, four, tipping on four, tipping on four, rapping, four, rapping, four, tipping on four, tipping on four, rapping, four, rapping, four, tipping on four, tipping on four, rapping, four, rapping, four, tipping on four, tipping on four, rapping, four, rapping, tipping on four, tipping on four, rapping, four, rapping, tipping on four, tipping on four, rapping, four, rapping, tipping on four, tipping on four, rapping, four, rapping, four, tipping on four, tipping on four, rapping, four, rapping.
Wild men great till they gotta be great. Don't text me, tell it straight to my face. Best friend set me down in the salon chair. Shampoo press, get you out of my hair. Fresh photos with the bomb lighting. New man on the Minnesota Vikings. True hurts needed something more exciting. Dum 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 dum.
From the south, and Louisiana from the south, and Mississippi from the south, Atlanta, Georgia from the south. That's why we doing it on south side, the south side, yeah, the south side, the south side. Everybody do the south side, the south side, yeah, the south side, the south side. Raise your hands and do the south side, the south side, yeah, the south side, the south side. Shock and rock and do the south side, the south side, yeah, the south side, the south side. It's time to throwing the juice and give it to the fam. You know the south side, acting bad on the fam. We throwing the juice and give it to the fam. You know the south side, acting bad on the fam. Alright, we throwing the juice and give it to the fam. You know the south side, acting bad on the fam. I'm throwing the juice and give it to the fam. You know the south side, acting bad on the fam.
Que humareda que nos tiene ahogando, la gente se pregunta, nadie sabe qué es. Un carro viejo que viene pitando, voy antes que el triciclo y el motor al revés. En la esquina yo esperando, como siempre su novia bien. Mis amigas se están burlando, murmuran cosas de él. Carcacha, paso a pasito, no dejes de tambalear. Carcacha, poco a poquito, no nos vayas a dejar. Carcacha, paso a pasito, no dejes de tambalear. Carcacha, poco a poquito, no nos vayas a dejar. Mire muchachos que no me arrepiento y tampoco me avergüenzo yo de mi galán. Aunque sea pobre y tenga un carro viejo, me trata como reino, un hombre de verdad. Y aunque tenga una carcacha, lo que importa es que voy con él. Tampoco será el más guapo, pero sí es mi novio bien. Carcacha, paso a pasito, no dejes de tambalear. Carcacha, poco a poquito, no nos vayas a dejar. Carcacha, paso a pasito, no dejes de tambalear.
Give it up for DJ Demo. Thank you, DJ Demo, for getting us started this evening. Those were some great beats. Welcome to the ACLU of Texas's annual membership meeting. My name is Ranjana Natarajan. Bienvenidos. I am chair of the board of directors of the ACLU of Texas, coming to you live from Austin. I am really looking forward to the time when we can hold this meeting in person again. For now, our staff and board are still socially distant and remote because of the pandemic, but we're looking forward to getting together with everyone in person in the future. We are going to have a great membership meeting tonight. We have an exciting program for you. Before we get started, we have some breaking news. Today, the U.S. Supreme Court agreed to hear both our case and the Biden administration's case against the Texas abortion ban. We have been pressing the courts for action as every day that passes continues to harm people seeking their right to an abortion. It's nearly unprecedented for the court to hear the case so quickly. The argument before the court will be in just 10 days on November 1st. And we're happy that the court has acted with this urgency. But the Supreme Court also continues to let the law be in effect while this plays out. And that means a constitutional right to abortion has gone dark in Texas and continues to do so. We have an exciting panel for you, and it'll start in just about 15 minutes. But first, the first order of business that I have is to introduce you to our new executive director. It is my honor and privilege to introduce to you, our members and our dedicated supporters, to Ani Blair, who's our executive director of the ACLU of Texas. Ani joined us in June of this year, and for me, as someone who has served on the board, as well as the board and staff-led search committee, and someone who's gotten to know her over these last 4 months, I can say with confidence that we have found the best person to lead this amazing organization. We as a board knew that the next executive director has to be a person of great vision and also capable of inspiring and leading our dynamic and diverse staff through the civil liberties challenges that we face in Texas. The board, through our search committee, which included staff members, screened dozens of applicants from around the country. Ani emerged as a candidate whose leadership skills, public policy experience, and commitment to diversity and equity and inclusion made her the perfect fit. So before she takes the virtual stage, let me tell you a little bit more about Ani Blair. Prior to taking the helm at the ACLU of Texas, Ani served as the executive director of Link Houston. That's a nonprofit organization advocating for robust and equitable transportation for all Houstonians. She helped shape a $7 billion transit plan to increase equitable bus access. She compelled the mayor's office to fix Houston's most dangerous intersections and launch a zero fatality safety campaign. She aligned advocates of affordable housing and transportation, and she won over $50 million for communities of color who were adversely impacted by highway expansion. Prior to her work at Link Houston, Ani was a Foreign Service officer who served at the U.S. Department of State. She also served as the director of the Human Rights Bureau's Near Eastern Affairs Office and a special assistant for Near Eastern Affairs to the U.S. State Department's Deputy Secretary. She has also served in the U.S. embassies in Jordan, Pakistan, and Iraq. It's not an overstatement to say she comes to us with a world of experience. Ani graduated from Texas A&M University and then from Harvard University's Kennedy School of Government. We are so excited to have her at the helm of the ACLU of Texas to lead our incredible staff. Ani, welcome.
Ranjana, thank you so much. I'm so grateful for your leadership and partnership. It's been a pleasure to get to know you over these few months. And everyone here should know that even before I started my job, after I was offered the position and knew that I was coming here, Ranjana started reaching out to me to make sure that I had everything I needed before I started on day one. And I'm so grateful for the time that you've given me, every moment, every second that I've been in this position. All of you should know it also, if you don't already, that Ranjana is a rock star and a freedom fighter herself beyond the service as board president for the ACLU of Texas. Since 2013, she's directed the Civil Rights Clinic at the UT School of Law. And prior to that, she worked at the ACLU of Southern California. And at this moment, she's back in the nonprofit advocacy world while on leave of absence from UT, serving as senior counsel at the State United Democracy Center. States United is an organization dedicated to advancing free, fair, and secure elections. Ranjana, it's an honor to be fighting alongside you to safeguard our democracy and to have you as board president. So to everyone here tonight, first of all, thank you for everyone who's joined. Thank you for your support of the ACLU of Texas, which is so critical at this time. Like Ranjana, I look forward to the opportunity when we can meet and hold this annual meeting in person. Yet one benefit of being virtual is that we get to bring your voices from all over the state and We get to bring in voices from all over the state to join us on this amazing panel that we have. Crystal Mason in Fort Worth, Paige Alexandria in Austin, Naida Alvarez in the Rio Grande Valley, and I'm here in Houston. Before you meet them, I'd like to take an opportunity for you as members to get to know me, who I am, and the values I bring as Executive Director of the ACLU of Texas. First of all, I should say that my pronouns are she and her. I grew up in Oklahoma and in Texas, and as Ranjana mentioned, went to college here and then went to go explore the world. I, in college, wanted to become a civil rights attorney, and through different circumstances and things that happened, decided to pursue human rights through the policy angle, and went to Washington and across the world to work in those arenas. And I'm glad that I did those things because they gave me insight not only to the struggles against authoritarianism and to protect democratic and our rights and freedoms all over the world, but it also reminded me of the opportunities we have in the United States and the struggles that we still face here. I returned home to Houston and worked in the nonprofit world before joining where I am now at the ACLU of Texas. And I can say that I wasn't ready to do this job a moment before I got here. I'm grateful for the experiences that I had, and I am looking forward to every step of the way fighting for our rights with all of you. Early in my tenure in this job, and I've only been here 4 months, but about 2 weeks in, I got a phone call from one of my colleagues, the legal director, saying that he needed to jump on the phone that evening with a person who was in jail for allegedly voting illegally. That was Mr. Hervis Rogers, and I joined that phone call and had the opportunity to share a meal with him after he had to post $100,000 bail with support from the Bail Project to be able to get out of jail for doing his duty of voting in the United States, right here in Harris County, where I sit right now. A few days later, I went to Austin in the first special legislative session to support our team as they were fighting what was then the voter suppression bill that was also looking at taking away our rights on voting. I was there when our dedicated legislators broke quorum to protect our rights, and then saw what happened for weeks later as the public narrative around our voting rights exploded in social media and in the media, with our team speaking up, working with our allies, and putting our community's voices first in our effort to protect our rights. It has been a privilege to see our team at work and to be able to work with Texans from across the state who are dedicated to protecting our civil rights and civil liberties. This is a hard fight, and this is a very difficult job. I won't pretend that it's not, but I'm grateful to be here, and I know that this is the right thing to be doing, to fighting for our rights, and I'm excited to do it with the people that I am working with every single day. And I'm grateful for the work that all of you as members do, as donors do, as our teammates do, and especially as the partners and people we represent do as they courageously stand up for our rights. So today, as we fight together, I want to just say thank you to all of you, and I'm honored to be in this role. Ranjana, back to you.
Thanks, Ani. I know that for those of you who are meeting Ani for the first time, you're going to be as impressed and amazed by her work, her dedication, and her story as I am. As I mentioned before, this past year has been a tough one, to say the least. A few days ago, our legislature in Texas finally gabbled out after holding its third special session. The legislature was supposed to be done on June 1st. All they had to do was pass a budget, but they have kept going and going. And since January, they have caused a lot of pain around the state because of the breadth and depth of their attacks against trans children, women, people of color, people with uteruses, people with disabilities, and students across Texas. They have censored discussions of race in the classroom, They have banned transgender kids from participating in sports. They started with this legislative session that passed one of the most extreme abortion bans in the country, banning abortion as early as at 6 weeks gestation, effectively outlawing abortions before most people even know they're pregnant, and allowing anyone, even a stranger, to sue any person who supports someone seeking abortion care, which is, after all, healthcare. And they wrapped up their 10-month span of legislating by redrawing electoral districts and the Texas congressional map in ways that continue to discriminate against minorities, reduce the voting power of people of color across the state, and continue policies that just don't work. In between, they passed a bill that restricts voting by mail, drive-through voting, limiting early voting, and imposing a number of other anti-voter measures that disproportionately target people with disabilities, people with limited English proficiency, and older Texans. All of this was taking place while we at the ACLU of Texas continued to fight unconstitutional Trump-era policies that had shut down our asylum system, denied due process, and targeting immigrant and border communities. All of this, even while Governor Abbott and the legislature ramped up their own new and aggressive anti-immigrant assaults, including funding for a so-called Texas border wall. We have been through a lot this year as Texans. So Ani, that's a big bunch of stuff to step into as the new executive director. Talk to us about how you and our dynamic team at the ACLU of Texas are responding to some of these civil rights and civil liberties challenges.
Well, Ranjana, in traditional ACLU of Texas fashion, we're taking them to court. And we've done so on nearly everything you've mentioned: the anti-abortion law, anti-voter law, Governor Abbott's attempt to enforce federal immigration law. And if we haven't yet sued on something you mentioned, we're looking at all possibilities to ensure we're preserving everyone's fundamental rights. We're going to beat them at all of this, and we're going to beat them through the sheer numbers of people, partners, and allies standing up to say, "Not in my state." Litigation is just one of the many aspects of our work to push for progressive change in Texas and to protect and defend civil rights and civil liberties. As I mentioned before, we have amazing policy experts, advocates, and communications professionals working tirelessly across the state and in DC to move progressive policies forward, and to do so while also engaging community members. We work in city halls, in schools, in community gatherings, in the courts, and at the state capitol. I can't tell you how many bills we helped effectively squash or amend during the regular and special sessions in Austin to prevent lawmakers from enacting even more harmful laws. It's truly amazing what our staff accomplished. Today, we'll hear not only about what's happening across the state. I want you to hear directly from Cliff Albright, co-founder and executive director of Black Voters Matter. And one thing Cliff says, albeit put a different way, is that all of these shameless politicians in Texas and across the country, they're attacking kids, families, women, people with disabilities, people of color, attempting to strip away their rights and access to constitutionally guaranteed freedoms simply because they realize they're losing. They see their grip on power slipping away. And as they do that, they fight to keep their grip on power. But we're not going to let them prevail over the long run. We will fight them every step of the way, and we will succeed in changing the face of power in Texas so that our elected officials actually reflect the people who live here and the values they share. What gives me a great deal of hope for the fight is the people that we fight with and the tools that we have to use in this fight. First, our staff at the ACLU of Texas, they don't give up and they keep fighting using all the tools in the ACLU toolbox. No other organization brings as many strategies to this fight than the ACLU, from policy advocacy to litigation and legal advocacy to public education. And our staff delivers, and they do so in collaboration with a whole host of partners across the state who are doing amazing work. We're in this together. Our staff gives me hope. Our partners give me hope. The community gives me hope. You, our members and supporters, give me hope. And our speakers tonight give me hope. These women model the bravery and grit of all the Texans who continue to fight in the face of such trauma and pain, and the odds that sometimes seem so stacked against us. Before we turn to the panel discussion, we're going to hear from another brave person in this fight. Her name is Kai Shapley. She's 10 years old, she's trans, and she's a fierce advocate alongside her mother, Kimberly. Kai simply wants to be a kid and live her life, yet as someone who is a target of these malicious attacks by our legislatures, she's chosen to take time away from being a kid to become an advocate and fight for her ability to be herself and for other trans people across the state of Texas. Here's a quote from her in testimony at a hearing this year. "I do not like spending my free time asking adults to make good choices. It makes me sad that some politicians use trans kids like me to get votes from people who hate me just because I exist. We won't tolerate a Texas where kids like Kai can't just be kids and have to fight to be themselves." Kai is an inspiration to all of us, and she wants to share something with you tonight.
I'm so grateful for all of you who are here helping the ACLU make the world a better place. You're giving people a chance. You're making a difference in the world. You're making the world a better place. You're giving people hope, and you're empowering other people. And I'm so thankful and grateful for everything that you are doing. You are amazing, and that's a very amazing thing to do.
Work it, make it, do it, makes us work it, make it, make it, work it, make it, work it, make it, do it, makes us harder, better, faster, stronger. Work it, make it, do it, makes us harder, better, faster, stronger. Work it, make it, do it, makes us harder, better, faster, stronger.
That don't kill me, can only make us stronger. I need you to hurry up now, cause I can't wait much longer. I know I got to be right now, cause I can't get much stronger. Man, I've been waiting all night now, that's how long I've been on ya.
Work it, make it, do it, makes us harder, better, faster, stronger. Work it, make it, do it, makes us harder, better, faster, stronger. Work it,
Is it worth it? Let me work it. I put my thing down, flip it and reverse it. It's your primitive, it's fine yet. It's your primitive, it's fine yet. If you got a big, let me search it to find out how hard I gotta work. Yeah, it's your primitive, it's fine yet. It's your
work it, make it, do it, makes us harder, better, faster, stronger. Work it, make it, do it, makes us harder, better, faster, stronger.
Lost in a dream, I don't know which way to go. Let me say if you are all that you seem, then baby I'm moving way too slow. I've been fooled before, wouldn't like to get my love caught in the slang.
Thank you again, DJ Demo. What a special message from Kai, who, like the women with us here tonight, is a true freedom fighter. Next up, I'm really excited to welcome our panel, but please stick around after we're done for a message from Cliff Albright of Black Voters Matter. Then Ranjana and I have a few closing remarks as well. It's my honor to welcome this evening's panelists. We have Crystal Mason in Fort Worth. Crystal is a client of the ACLU of Texas. Crystal thought she was performing her civic duty by filling out a provisional ballot in the 2016 election, a ballot that was never counted. She didn't know it would land her a 5-year prison sentence, upending her family and the life she had built with her 3 children. Her case is currently at the Texas Court of Criminal Appeals. She has since become a leader in the voting rights movement through her organization, Crystal Mason, The Fight. Welcome, Crystal.
Hello, how you doing?
Naida Alvarez is joining us from her home in the Rio Grande Valley in Starr County, just upriver from McAllen. Naida is a client of the ACLU of Texas as well, one of several landowners we represent facing loss of their land due to proposed border wall construction. Her family has lived on property near the border for 5 generations and was the target of one of the government land grabs. Welcome, Naida. And third, we have Paige Alexandria. Paige is with us from Austin. Paige is a parent, a writer, and an abortion storyteller. She currently works at a national abortion fund, sits on the board of directors at the Lilith Fund, and her reporting on abortion has been featured in publications like Vice, Bustle, Rewire News, Shondaland, and more. Previously, Paige helped provide abortion care for 2 years as a counselor at Austin Women's Health Center, where she worked also with Jane's Due Process as their weekend text hotline supervisor, and helped Texans access out-of-state abortion care while working at the Fund Texas Choice. Welcome, Paige. I want to start with the same question for all 3 of you. In the face of extremely challenging odds in fighting in the state of Texas and also the federal government, what inspires you to stand up, keep fighting, and to speak truth to power? Crystal, let's go to you first.
It's going to be my children, my mother. That's who inspires me. I had to realize in my situation the motive, and I was not going to allow that to happen. So that's when I started Crystal Mason, the Fight Against Voter Suppression. And that was to educate and let people know how important it is to vote. With my situation, it's like, to let people know how important it is to vote. It's, in my case, the judge, the DA, the prosecutor. So this is the reason why we have to let people know that it's so important to go and vote, starting with the elected officials.
Thank you, Crystal. Naida, what keeps you going?
You know, against all odds, I said no to the U.S. government, the Trump administration. I said, no, you cannot have my home, my land. Knowing that all the odds were against me, I said to myself, what do I have to lose? You know, they were going to take everything, my home, my land, and be left with nothing. I went to a border wall meeting, no border wall coalition meeting, and I saw a lot of elderly people that had no access to internet, social media, and had no idea what was going on. And I said to myself, who's going to help these people? Someone has to stand up for them. And I said, I'm going to do this. You know, I did not pick this fight. It came to me. It came to the Valley just because we live along the border. Now, if I don't fight this border wall battle, who is? We must keep up the fight and tear down the walls that have been built. You know, walls built on lies and the manipulation of truth. The truth always prevails. And truths have been slowly coming out from the Trump administration. So what inspired me was the eyes I saw in those elderly people who felt helpless. And that's my inspiration. Someone has to stand up for them.
Thank you, Naida. Paige.
As someone who's had an abortion, this fight has always been deeply personal for me. I experienced barriers in abortion care while Texas HB2 was in effect, which was legislation that closed over half of Texas's abortion providers. It took me almost 3 weeks to have an abortion due to limited appointments and clinic availability. It took away my choice to have a medication abortion. It increased the costs I had to pay. And had SB 8 been in effect, I'd probably have a third child now. And since my abortion, I've worked at and volunteered with several abortion funds, practical support organizations, and eventually helped provide abortion care at one of our local clinics. So not only have I been personally impacted by these medically unnecessary restrictions, but I've continued to see the way that they impact the communities I serve through various roles. I've also seen how our state and federal governments continue to fail us, like during the COVID bans last year, and again with SB 8 even being passed, and when the Supreme Court did not provide any relief. But the patients I serve will always be my reason for continuing to fight, full stop. Listening to their experiences, empathizing with their pain and emotion, and sympathizing when it comes to barriers that I haven't personally experienced but still understand as extremely harmful and sometimes dangerous, are among some of the ways I stay inspired to keep fighting and speak truth to power. We are not something to regulate and restrict. We are people, we're parents, we're survivors, and there's so much collective power to be built when we share our experiences and demand a better, more equitable world when it comes to healthcare.
Thank you, Paige. Paige, I want to pick up on something you mentioned. You brought up SB 8, the law that effectively bans abortion. It restricts abortion at 6 weeks, but it effectively bans abortion across the state of Texas. I'd like to hear from you about what you're witnessing on the ground since the law went into effect on September 1st.
It's been extremely difficult or outright impossible for patients to access abortion care in the state. Even for folks who may be early enough to have an abortion, there's the mental exhaustion, anguish, and stress at hand when it comes to wondering if you'll be able to have an abortion or not. There's still $500 to $600 standing between you and the abortion at a time when now more than ever, each day that passes can mean everything when it comes to being able to actually access it under SB 8. People still need to secure childcare. People need transportation. They need money, and all just to comply with Texas's mandatory ultrasound, the 24-hour waiting period, and bans on private and public health insurance. And this is just for folks who may still be early enough. For folks who aren't, their options are to travel out of state or continue a pregnancy they aren't ready for, don't want, or didn't consent to. And when it comes to out-of-state abortion care, those costs add up fast. Not only are folks faced with the cost of an abortion, but now there's hundreds to potentially thousands of dollars required to travel out of state, secure childcare and lodging, food and medicine for the trip, plane, bus, or train tickets, and ride shares. They may need to lose up to 2 weeks off of work unpaid if their employer has quarantine policies in place for out-of-state travel. And all of these barriers are compounded for folks who are already disproportionately impacted by restrictions. Low-income families, Black and Indigenous women, people of color, our trans and queer communities, disabled people, immigrants, youth, parents. These communities are the first to experience the undue burden as a result of these harmful anti-choice legislation and bills. In the RGV, we have folks who are at risk of deportation if they leave the area due to Border Patrol checkpoints. For some communities in Texas, there just isn't a safe option to just travel out of state. And when SB 8 first went into effect, I personally spoke with folks whose medical or surgical abortions failed, and then they were forced to travel out of state instead of receiving management care at their own clinic due to the legislation. I've talked to people who had pregnancies without cardiac activity at their ultrasound, and then the next day it was there and their provider couldn't proceed. I've talked to people who've pawned all their belongings and are sleeping in their car to make it out of state. Thankfully, our Texas abortion funds are working tirelessly to help folks access the care they need. But I know when it comes to Lilith Fund, our hotline calls have significantly reduced. And not because people don't need abortions anymore, but because their choice has been ripped away from them.
Thank you, Paige. I think that your comments just really help us to better understand, or at least get a glimpse into the many barriers that people already have that are exacerbated by this law, and the danger that it puts people in when they don't have abortion, the right that they should have. So thank you for sharing all of that and helping us to understand the many layers that are going on behind this law. Nida, I want to come to you now. A couple of months ago, we were able to celebrate the dismissal of the federal lawsuits that attempted to take your riverfront land for border wall construction. But you're still concerned about the federal government's actions and now the state's actions on doing a state border wall. Tell us what you're seeing, what you're feeling, and what's going on.
The federal government's actions worry me because as we speak, the wall is still being built here in the Rio Grande Valley. Even though Biden's administration has put a stop to it, to all construction, it's still being built. Then Texas has a governor, Abbott, who is feeding his people lies about how immigration is at a record and drugs are coming in and so forth at breaking levels and planning to build Trump's wall. Then he calls it the Texas Wall and started some sort of funding and so forth, and has actually built a chain link fence. And because of that, now we have people getting arrested because they are going into people's private lands, and we have a whole bunch of issues that were not there before. Now, the thing with this is that people are not being allowed to claim asylum at our port, so they come in through other means, right? But Abbott has a plan, and his plan is to eventually run for president. And he basically is building his whole portfolio based on manipulation of truth and manipulation of a stage where he is feeding his base lies. And that is something just like Trump did. Now, we also know that we have redistricting. We are the way we're going to vote has been restricted and so forth. And this is all going to create a domino effect that it is eventually going to affect all of us. And that is not right.
Thank you, Nida. Even for all of us, members of the ACLU of Texas, most of us probably in the actual state of Texas, it's a big state, and many of us are not there on the ground right now at this moment to see what you're seeing. And so it is really important and so powerful when you share what you see happening along the border on your own property. And the descriptions that you just gave are so insightful because there's not enough coverage to really let people know what's happening on the land right at the border. And I am just grateful for your ability to be able to speak about it and to give such wonderful descriptions that help us to feel like we're there and help us to better understand what's happening. Crystal, I want to come to you next. Throughout the course of your fight, you've become increasingly vocal, speaking out across the country. You're a nationally known public figure in the fight for voting rights today and in calling out the big lie of voting irregularities. What concerns you about these continued attempts to prosecute non-existent voter fraud?
What continues me is just looking at how in my situation where I didn't even vote, I filled out a provisional ballot that never counted, and yet I am fighting a charge of illegally voting without even voting. So my concern is looking at the laws that they have now where it's changing from where you can vote, the hours of voting, just a whole bunch of different things that they have now going on that affects a lot of people of color. And so with this is the reason why I'm trying to educate that it's so important. I've always voted in the presidential election, and I had to realize with my case that it started local. So this is the reason why I'm out here advocating in the streets on how important it is to vote, because it starts right here at home in order to fix anything else. And so this is my drive and my energy now. It took my story. I didn't want people to be like, oh my God, look at her. She's facing 5 years. No, I want to let you know if you're going to take me, you're going to take me fighting. And that's it. I'm not just going to allow this to just happen without letting people know that this is absolutely wrong. And I know if I go, ACLU, y'all are coming to get me, right?
Yes, we'll be right there standing with you. Always. Crystal, Nida, Paige, I just want to thank you so much for speaking out today. And before we close, I want to ask you one last round. Why is it important for everyone listening, for everyone reading, for everyone joining us today to speak out and to speak up right now at this moment? Crystal, I'm going to start with you.
Because if you don't, your voice is never heard. So I feel like it's so important to just to speak and let people know what's right and what's wrong. Because if I had just allowed what to happen to me just happen, then it would have did exactly what they wanted to do, and that's to intimidate people from voting.
And Crystal, I think you always speak out with your family, and I think that that's important as well.
That's my motivation.
Nida, tell our audience why it's important to speak truth to power.
We must speak truth to power always. We must never be silenced, especially when we are right and we know the reality of the issue. When we see the issue, we must not be afraid ever, even if it is fighting our own government. And that is for the future of our future generations. We must speak truth to power because it is the right thing to do for the sake of our children and the future.
Thank you, Nida. Paige, I'm coming to you last but not least, but I'm going to add a twist to it. Why is it important to speak up now with your own story? As a storyteller, I'd love to hear your advice on that.
Right. So our stories are ours to tell, and our very existence as people who've had abortions is an act of resistance. When we share our experiences, uplift the stories of others, and demand a world that's equitable for all, we're fighting back against decades of abortion restrictions and the message that says what we're doing is wrong and left us with what semblance of a choice we've had left. We're creating space for ourselves in a world that's constantly trying to push us out. But I think it's important to acknowledge that being outspoken about something like abortion is a privilege that not everyone has. Not everyone has the support to safely share their experience with abortion or can even say the word abortion out loud. Abortion stigma shows up in our lives in very different ways, but pushing back against harmful messaging or rhetoric can be a number of things. It can be a conversation with a friend or family member. It can look like supporting abortion positive bills and opposing negative ones at your local hearings. It can mean uplifting the barriers folks experience and the resources that they need. It can look like this right now, connecting with each other in our community, brainstorming ways to become engaged in this fight. People who have abortions are resilient, but we shouldn't have to be. And I think continuing to fight for accessible abortion, regardless if some people can still access it right now, is important. There is no reproductive justice when folks are still deciding between paying rent or their abortion, sleeping in their car, or being forced into pregnancies they don't want. And this was the reality in Texas long before SB 8. It'll continue to be the reality after it if it's overturned. We know the ripple effect of impacts that restrictive bills lead to, from misinformation to limited clinic availability to clinic closures. And now more than ever is such an important time to speak up, as the Supreme Court is set to hear two major cases that could impact the future of Roe v. Wade. It could set a precedent for other states to pass similar near total abortion bans, which they're already trying to do. So I thank everyone for being here today and showing your support, because things in Texas feel really scary and uncertain right now. But building community with all of you is one of the things that helped me feel grounded during all of this. So thank you.
Thank you, Paige. Thank you, Nida. Thank you, Crystal. You are so inspiring, and I am grateful to be in this fight with you. I'm grateful that you joined this evening to share your stories and took time out of your busy schedules, because I know how busy you all are. I also want you all to stay tuned for a message from Cliff Albright from Black Voters Matter that is also inspiring. Let's hear a word from Cliff, and then Ranjana and I will wrap up.
Hey everybody, this is Cliff Albright, co-founder, executive director of Black Voters Matter. I am so excited to join you all for your annual membership meeting. Whenever Oni, my good friends Oni and Sarah and the team call, I'm always glad to answer, because you all have been such great friends and such great partners. You all know what happened in the state of Georgia, right? You all know that we had an historic election, historic turnout. Black voters and other voters came out in historic numbers and shocked the country, right? And because of that, we then saw the backlash. We saw the voter suppression, the Jim Crow voter suppression bill that legislators here in this state tried to pass. And we put up a good fight, right? And we did all kinds of things, the texting and the phone calls, and we even came up with this corporate accountability campaign targeting companies like Delta and Coca-Cola and Home Depot. And we got some responses, right? We started a movement across the country where companies started coming out and speaking out against voter suppression. In Georgia, it happened too late, but we were so glad to be able to link up and partner up with some incredible organizers in Texas that were doing some great things already. You know, organizations like Move Texas and Texas Organizing Project and so many others, right? And ACLU of Texas. And so we were able to connect up and bring some lessons learned about corporate accountability and do some full page ads in Texas newspapers and do some direct actions and protesting at AT&T and a whole bunch of other things through this incredible coalition, which at the end of the day, that coalition was able to inspire the whole country, right? They were able to inspire, in fact, their own legislators and cause them to do a walkout, which gave the rest of the country a blueprint on how to fight back against this voter suppression. And so what you all there have done there in Texas and the way that you were able to fight that fight and force them to, they said that bill would pass in 6 days, and ultimately it took them more than 6 months and not one but 2 special sessions in order to get it done. That's the power that you all showed right there in Texas. And it's that kind of power that we know is going to get us the victory that we need, because we know at the end of the day what we need is federal voting rights legislation. We can't keep fighting this battle state by state, right? We can't keep fighting in Georgia and Florida and Texas and one by one. We need federal legislation. That's why we're doing protests in DC and in other states and in West Virginia and a whole bunch of other places right now. And we will get the voting rights that we deserve. And Texas will be the state that it ought to be. It will become a state that will truly reflect in its politics the true electorate that resides within the state. They told us in Georgia that, you know, it would be impossible to get 2 senators, a black senator and a Jewish senator. They told us it couldn't be done, and y'all see what happened. So don't let anybody tell you about what Texas can and cannot do, right? And remember this is the last thing I'm gonna say before I go. Remember that in 1965, Lyndon Johnson didn't want to pass the Voting Rights Act. Democrats and Republicans, people in Congress didn't want to pass the Voting Rights Act. Lyndon Johnson himself told Dr. King it wasn't the right time and that he needed to wait. But at the end of the day, it was our organizing and our activism and our commitment that pushed through the Voting Rights Act. And that's the same thing that's going to happen now. We are going to get federal voting rights legislation passed. We are going to put a halt to this voter suppression that we're seeing in the state of Texas. And once again, I tell you, I am confident more than ever that we will make Texas be the state that it truly deserves to be, and it truly reflects its electorate. And it will be because of the work of folks just like you and organizations just like the ACLU of Texas. So I'm so excited to be in this struggle with you all. I don't want to be in struggle, but if I'm gonna be in it, I want to be with it and friends like you all and friends like the ACLU of Texas. And remember, we will win, y'all. We are going to win. They are doing all of this not because we are losing. They're fighting us and they're trying to suppress our votes because they know that we are winning. Remember that. And remember, can't stop, won't stop. I'll see y'all soon.
Thank you, Cliff, for that really inspiring message. I think one thing that Cliff said is that we all have to keep fighting together, and the ability to be together, whether virtually or in person, is what keeps us strong. So thanks to our panelists, to Kai Shapley, to everyone who joined us this evening. Our panelists were terrific, and they reminded us also of their strength, and it was inspiring to hear what keeps them moving. We are in it to make a better Texas, a stronger Texas for all Texans. That means everyone going out and voting for the civil liberties and the civil rights that you believe in. And it also means, and we appreciate this, that you all join us when we're out at the Capitol, when we're out marching on the streets. You find your ACLU of Texas people. We are together, and that makes us stronger as we push to improve our state for everyone and make it more inclusive.
Thank you, Ranjana. Yes, please vote and support the ACLU of Texas. Cliff pointed out the organizing, the activism, and the commitment of people throughout the civil rights movement to push forward their positive agenda for change. And that's what we are doing today. We need your support for our organizing, for our activism, for our shared commitment to make this a place that protects everyone's civil rights and civil liberties. We're in this fight, and as well as our many partners across the state, we're working together, and we want to continue to work with you. So stay apprised of what we're up to. Please make sure you and your friends and your family are signed up to receive our emails. Simply enter your name and email address on the front page of our website. And that's one way where you can stay tuned for all of the great things that we're doing on every issue, including, as Ranjana mentioned earlier, the fight all the way to the Supreme Court for abortion rights.
And follow us on Instagram, on Twitter, Facebook, even LinkedIn. We are on all the socials, and we want to connect with you and hear about all the amazing things you're doing in your communities across Texas. I'm a supporter, I'm a member of the ACLU, and I know how important it is that we all work together in this fight.
If you'd like to become a volunteer, specifically a legal observer volunteer, you can also sign up on our website to do that. Donate. That's a great way to support us, to support this work and the amazing people who work on these things every day. Your membership gift is a non-tax deductible contribution to our 501c4, and also consider making a donation that is tax deductible to our 501c3. Be good, be strong, keep up the fight. Can't stop, won't stop.
Good night.
But then I spent so many nights thinking how you did me wrong, and I grew strong, and I learned how to get along, and so you're back from outer space. I just walked in to find you here with that sad look upon your face. I should have changed that stupid lock. I should have made you leave your key. If I'd have known for just 1 second you'd be back to bother me. Oh, now go, walk out the door, just turn around now, 'cause you're not about the way I was. Did the heartbreak change me? Maybe, but look at where I ended up. I'm all good already, so moved on, it's scary. I'm not where you left me at all. So, if you don't wanna see me dancing with somebody, if you wanna believe that anything could stop me, don't show up, don't come out, don't start caring about me now. Walk away, you know how, don't start caring about me now. I got a cute face, chubby waist, thick legs in shape, rump shaking both ways, make you do a double take. Planet rocker, showstopper, flow popper, head knocker, beat scholar, tail dropper. Do my thing, mother. My Rolls Royce, Lamborghini, Blue Medina, always beaming, rag top, chrome pipes, blue lights, out of sight. Long weed, sold in, say it again, sold in. Make that money, throw it in, booty bouncing, don't hear. Everybody here, get your backs off the wall, 'cause misdemeanor said, Well, my name is Sierra for all you fly fellas. No one can do it better. She'll sing on acapella. Boy, we're gonna make you lose control and let it go for your nigga gon' hit the floor. Boy, you should know that I've got you on my mind. Your secret admirer. I've been watching you. At night, I think of you. I want to be your lady, baby. If your game is on, give me a call, boo. If your love is strong, I'll give my all to you. At night, I think of you. I want to be your lady, baby. If your game is on, give me a call, boo. If your love is strong.
Dirty South, Can y'all really feel me? Feel us. East Coast feel me. Feel us. West Coast feel me. Say what? Dirty South, Here we go. Can y'all really feel me? Baby girl. East Coast feel me. West Coast feel me. Can you feel us? Dirty South, Can y'all really feel me? Feel us. East Coast feel me. Feel us. West Coast feel me. Say what? Dirty South, Here we go. Can y'all really feel me? Baby girl. East Coast feel me. West Coast feel me. Can you feel us? Dirty South, Here we go. Can y'all really feel me? Baby girl. East Coast feel me. West Coast feel me. Can you feel us? Dirty South, Can y'all really feel me? Feel us. East Coast feel me. Feel us. West Coast feel me.